Saturday, I went back to Otakon, and honestly, it was a great day. The place was packed. I spent hours filming, cosplayers posing for photo shoots in the hallways, players deep into a mahjong match, arcade cabinets running nonstop, tabletop card tournaments, crowds moving through the dealer's hall, A-roll, B-roll, plenty of both. When I finally had a break, I returned Jaron Haskins' call, and he told me to come up to room 204. I assumed this was a debrief, a follow-up on the incident report from the day before. Maybe an explanation of what happened, maybe an apology, maybe an update on the attendee who shouted at me and the woman who scratched my hand. Instead, Jaron introduced me to Simon Chambers, the vice chairman of Otakon. I walked him through everything again, the shouting, the grab for my phone, the scratch, the blood. And when I finished, Simon told me I had violated Otakon's media policy. I was stunned. That was the complete opposite of what Otakon staff told me the day before, when the message was that I'd done nothing wrong. So afterward, I went and read Otakon's published media and convention policies. I could not find any requirement that credentialed media obtain consent before filming B-roll in public convention areas. What I did find was the opposite. The attendee policies say that by attending Otakon, you grant the convention permission to photograph and record you for archival and promotional purposes. Simon said that provision applied only to Otakon staff, not to the press. That surprised me because, as approved credentialed media, I assumed I was there to help showcase the convention. And when I checked in with Alice Wilson, the head of press relations, nobody said a word about needing consent to film B-roll. If that rule existed, that was the logical time to explain it, especially at a convention with tens of thousands of attendees. Had I known I was expected to obtain consent from everyone before filming B-roll, I probably would not have agreed to cover the event. You cannot violate a rule that no one wrote down and no one told you about. So I asked about all the other cameras. There were photographers and videographers everywhere, filming the exhibitor hall, filming crowds in the aisles, filming people playing games. And from what I observed, none of them were stopping hundreds of attendees who were busy playing games to ask permission before rolling. That's not laziness, that's the industry standard. Shooting general B-roll at a public convention without individual consent is how event coverage works everywhere. Simon said those situations were different because those were wide shots of large public spaces. But that's not what B-roll is. B-roll is defined by its purpose, not by the camera framing. It's supplemental footage that supports the story being told in the A-roll. A wide shot of the exhibitor hall and a shot from behind an attendee playing a video game both fall into the same category of B-roll. In both cases, the purpose is to document the atmosphere and activities of the convention, not to focus on a particular individual. If a wide shot containing 100 people requires no individual consent, why would a tighter shot from behind a single attendee be treated differently? Both are B-roll filmed in the same public convention space. Nothing in Otakon's published media or convention policies explains where that line is drawn. Then the explanation shifted again. Now I was told the issue was that the attendee could be identified, but the shot I intended was framed from behind. I was filming the gameplay, not her face. And when I later reviewed footage from other creators covering Otakon that same weekend, I found numerous examples showing clearly identifiable attendees with no indication that individual consent had been obtained. And then there's the fact that should have ended the meeting on its own. I never recorded the video. The attendee shouted at me just as I was raising my phone and I lowered it immediately. That's not a violation. That's exactly what cooperation looks like. No footage of that moment exists because it was never captured. I even pointed out that Simon himself had appeared in a Fox 5 interview filmed at the convention with attendees playing games in the background, and I asked whether Fox 5 got consent from everyone visible in those shots. His response was that it wasn't my concern. At that point, I tried to plead my case. I told him that if I had misunderstood an unpublished expectation, I understood it now. I offered to continue covering the convention under whatever guidance they wanted. I'd already invested about 5 hours filming, and my goal was to produce a positive video showcasing Otakon, just as I had done for Awesome Con earlier that year. He declined. He instructed me to surrender my press badge and leave the convention, and Jaron Haskins escorted me out. What surprised me even more came later when I read Otakon's published press policy. Enforcement is supposed to be progressive, a verbal warning for a first violation, a written warning for a second, and revocation of credentials only after a third. So even assuming I violated the policy, which I dispute, the written process starts with a verbal warning. My credentials were revoked on the spot. One more thing stood out. Alice Wilson, the head of press relations, the person who credentialed me, was not in that meeting and had no part in the decision to revoke my credentials. So think about how that weekend ended. A man falsely acted like he had authority he didn't have. A woman grabbed at my phone and scratched me hard enough to draw blood. This man was allowed to stay all weekend because I saw him playing video games at the exhibitor hall earlier. What I know is that the one person who lost his credentials and got escorted out of the building was the person who got assaulted and reported it. As I walked out of the Walter E. Washington Convention Center, cameras were everywhere. People were still filming crowds moving through the halls, faces plainly visible, and I saw no sign that anyone was asking for consent. Maybe Otakon's expectations are different from what's written in its published policies. If so, those expectations need to be explained clearly to credentialed media before they start filming, not used to evict them afterward. I've been covering events for years. I've never been assaulted at a convention for raising my phone. I've never had my press credentials revoked after reporting that assault. And I've never been removed from an event over footage that was never recorded. That's what stays with me, not the scratch on my hand, the inconsistency. I arrived intending to make Otakon a positive video. Instead, this became the story I had to tell.